Hello, and today I'd like to explain to you a little bit of the history and how to make egg rolls. Egg rolls were first developed in the Jin Dynasty in 265 AD, although they weren't necessarily called egg rolls back then. Back then they were called spring cakes. This was due to the fact that they weren't really egg rolls back then. They were kind of larger cakes made out of very thin rice or rice wheat bread or rice wheat. They made these in China due to for the fact of it was the beginning of spring, it was the end of winter, and they were basically trying to bring joy and excitement to their households to ward off evil spirits in the form of exciting food. And then during 1618 AD, cakes became a little hotter and spicier due to the things that they were putting in them, like ginger, garlic, and onions. Although the traditional spring cakes were still preferred over the spicy versions. And then again, during the Ming and Qing dynasties, they changed due to the fact that they developed a system called, where'd it go? Called the biting spring, which was another form of spring that came after winter, and it was just another, I guess, theology about fighting off evil spirits and making food that was enjoyable and brought delight to your household. And then, or somewhere around the 1950s, a man named Dun brought the egg rolls to America, which they were a little bit different than spring rolls. They were obviously made with eggs back then, and it was just a flat sheet that looked similar to this, made fully out of egg. And then they put vegetables and meat inside and rolled it up in the eggs. And then they had to adjust it to the American society because they weren't accepting it as well as they'd hoped, so they involved flour and other MSG and things like that to make it more appetizing for the American culture. And that's really where egg rolls came from the spring roll culture and Chinese culture, and then it being adapted to America. And now I'd like to explain to you, I guess, what goes into an egg roll. This is what the finished product looked like. It's pork, 80-20 ground beef, cabbage, carrots, and ginger, onions, and soy sauce all go into this mixture. First, you want to put your ground pork and beef into a skillet and brown it. Make sure it's nice and fully cooked before you add any of your vegetables. And then I like to add the ginger and garlic first, because the more time they cook, the more flavor the meat absorbs. And after that, I like to add the cabbage, carrots, which today you can buy in a grocery store. It's called coleslaw mix, basic coleslaw mix. And once that all cooks down a little bit, you throw a little bit of soy sauce in there to give it a little bit of flavor and I guess oriental style of flavoring. After that's all done, you want to put your mix into a bowl that obviously will fit it all, and then you want to put it in the fridge for roughly 2 to 3 hours to let it all completely cool down, so that the temperature doesn't mess with your wraps, because they become extremely flexible and not very workable when they're that hot, because they tear very easily, and that's not very good when you're throwing them into a 365-degree fryer. But after your contents are cooled down, you want to get a spoon that's roughly larger than a serving spoon, about around this size. I'm going to fill the tip of the spoon up, roughly that much. Put it in the middle of your wrapper, maybe a little bit more than that. And this all comes from experience from wrapping, knowing exactly how much you want to add. But then I like to take the wrapper, push it over, pull it all the way back to make it nice and tight. Then you have a cup of water, and that helps the egg roll wrapper seal itself around your contents. You want to make sure your edges are nice and clean so that there's no holes, because when holes happen in egg rolls, you get a nice black burn spot because the oil is so hot and the contents inside will just burn. And then I like to put one finger on the edge of your contents and fold the edge of it over. Do the other on the other side. Do the same on the other side, sorry. And then add a little bit more water to the front of it. You want this area right here to be nice and wet so that your egg roll will stick to itself. And you just roll it over like a burrito. It's almost the exact same wrapping style that you would do in a burrito shop. I'll show you again if you want to come closer. So you fill up your contents to what I call, eye measuring, what you think is roughly enough. Push it over, pull it nice and tight, make sure all your contents are inside of that wrap. Roll it over, put your finger on the edge, flip it. Same on the other side. Wet down the tip and roll it over. It's quite simple. Along with egg rolls, I'd like to show you how to make a wonton. That's really simple. We like to add bacon to ours, so you just fry up the bacon beforehand, throw it into your cream cheese, and mash it all together, and then put it in the fridge again so that it cools down and doesn't mess up your wrappers. But this is also kind of eye measuring, but this one's really more so like a tip of a spoonful, roughly that much. Take it and you put it right in the middle. And this one's much easier than the egg roll. You just take a little bit of water, wet down all the edges, fold it in half. To get the perfect egg roll though, it really comes down to the temperature of your frying oil. And you want it to be right around 650 because underneath that it'll take, you want it to be around 365. I don't know where that came from. We want it to be right around 365 degrees Fahrenheit. And you want to make sure that there are no openings on your egg rolls. You want to make sure it's nice and flush all the way around. If you have openings at the tips, you want to make sure you squeeze them closed. And you just absolutely make sure there's no openings because the insides of your egg rolls will burn. But I use 365 because right around 350 it starts to burn the wrapper before it really heats up the insides. And anything under 360, the insides will start to cook too much before the wrapper's fried. And these, I've gone ahead and pre-cooked some. These are what your finished product should look like. The outside of the egg roll is nice and golden brown while the inside is not too hot to eat, but still pulls apart quite nicely and is nice and hot and steaming. When the wontons come in, you want to absolutely make sure that all of your edges are closed because these are much easier to burn than the egg rolls. And cream cheese likes to light on fire and burn quite quickly. So you want to, when you roll them, you want to make sure that once you flip your egg roll over, you go over each side and make sure it's nice and fully closed and that you haven't ripped the part that's over what's inside of it. And this is what your finished wonton should look like as well. We like to eat egg rolls quite often, and it's one of our family's favorite meals. And in my opinion, it's quite easy to make, and it doesn't really take a whole lot of time. Thank you.